Hi, Noah. So good to see you. How are you doing?
Same here. I am doing great. I love your background, by the way. You make me dream. So,
So
with
actually,
yeah.
I'm staying at an Airbnb right now,
Oh.
and I just recently moved from San Francisco to San Diego. So I'm currently in San
Mm-hmm.
Diego at the moment. In the process of trying to find a place and all that, fun stuff while you're moving. So thank you
Yeah.
for recommending.
Yeah, I'm the master of relocation, so we can chat about that. But just if people don't see it, you have a background that is a beach-like design. So it's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess the surfboard helps.
Mm-hmm.
So tell my audience a little bit about who you are.
Who am I? That's the big question, right? So if you hear me, you can hear I have an accent, right? So a lot of times it's like, where is she from? So I'm originally from Israel, but I live in the U.S. for 15 years. And today, a lot probably of our conversation will be the before and after the relocation experience. So, for me, since I was a little girl, I knew that I'm an influencer, that I'm the leader in the playground or whatever, not the bossy one, but just the one that when she opens her mouth and she speaks, people follow her ideas. Um, so with that, in Israel, you serve in the army. I got my first training in how to coach leaders. It wasn't referred as coaching there, but that's actually what I did. I taught officers how to lead their people, that their people trust them when they need to trust them, if there is a situation where they have to fight or do whatever. So it was about the stance and executive presence and all that good stuff without calling that.
Mhm.
And after the army, really what I did was in the human resources and training development that we share in common, right? And getting into those leadership roles and finding myself working in a wonderful um, consulting company doing change management consulting.
Mhm.
And that was very uncomfortable to say that, about 20 and more years ago. And it was a bit different than today. My focus was when companies brought technologies, they invested a lot. Even today they invested millions of dollars in technologies that today don't cost the same, but it was new, and people were very concerned that when the technology comes, they will go home.
Mhm.
And my role from one side was to teach all the executives, really high level CEOs, SVPs, C suite executives, to work with each other to make that project works because it's so expensive, right? And there is all the politics and all the good stuff. And I was 20 and a bit. And on the other side, how you make sure that there is not so much noise with the fear of bringing that technology. So I learned a lot from that experience. And that's when my husband got an offer, job offer or job opportunity to move with the company that he worked to New York City. I just started a new job inside a company in human resources, was very excited to take the next step in an executive role. And relocation is exciting, but it was the worst, and it's always like that, worst timing for me. So we decided to go on the adventure and go for 2 years, and 15 years after, I'm still in the US, and my little kids became vicious teenagers. And that's kind of like the beginning of story in my life, because from really feeling that things work for me and I can figure things out and I can see the career plan that I designed for myself, and I kind of like knew my path. Um, Suddenly, I can't find myself. I'm trying to look for jobs. I'm trying to do what I did in Israel, and it just doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
And what I didn't realize then that I know today is that there was a little voice that was getting in my way. And that voice was telling me that my English is not good enough.
Mm,
And suddenly, from that influencer that feels very comfortable to open her mouth and talk to a group of people because she knows she can influence, suddenly that forte became my hurdle, my barrier.
mm,
Um, and I get stuck. I get stuck for 5 years.
mm.
Um, yeah. So
But how did you break that when did you realize that you were stuck, and what tools did you use to break out of that situation?
so I think what happens to people like me, and I believe that some of us are doers and some of us are what I call beers, more focused on their emotions and their thoughts. And I was a natural doer. I always said that for my doing, people will see me and I will shine and I will
Mhm,
move forward. But I couldn't even get myself into that, right? There was a job that I was working in a nonprofit, but it just, and I was the doer there again, but it was just not fulfilling. And that goes with right the purpose. So there was no purpose and meaning really to what I was doing, and I felt very frustrated.
mhm,
But to your question, I did every mistake possible because I was focusing on actions only.
mhm,
And what got in my way is actually the thoughts and the emotions that I didn't pay attention to. So I was taking the same actions that I took before, and I got into that vicious cycle with myself because I didn't realize that the more actions I take in the same way will not take me anywhere. I
mhm,
had to work on my mindset, really, which I know today. Then I didn't know that. And in that space, I got into a moment where I had kind of like a big fail. I tried to take a human resources certification
mhm,
exam that you probably know about, and you need to sit and study for it for a long time. And
mhm,
I failed once. And
mhm.
I said, I'm going to take it again because I was on that doing, right? And
Right.
and I took it again and I failed again. I was like, if you need, let's say 400, I was 6 points from getting that
Oh,
400. So
good
it was
grief.
like a mean and crucial moment for me, right?
Mhm,
And I just left that building. I called my husband and I said, I surrender.
mhm,
I surrender. I'm done with trying to have my past that I had in Israel, and I'm going to take some time off.
mhm,
And if you ask me what shifted everything for me, that was the moment.
mhm,
That was the moment when I stopped trying to control everything and thinking that by controlling with my actions, I will see new results.
mhm.
And that's where the shift started to happening for me.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's almost
Yeah.
like if you're chasing something, it almost seems like that thing or that person senses that, either it's a sense of desperation um, or energy. It almost seems like a negative energy when you're chasing something. And when you let the
Yeah.
universe takes control and you just kind of sit back and just let the universe do its job, it seems like it works the opposite. You get the things you want by simply, you know, laying back and let the universe handle it. Of course, I mean, there's
Yeah.
some parts of navigating, guiding your actions, but it's almost as if like you're when you want something so badly, it just doesn't work. At least it's been that way for me in terms of getting the job that I want, or going on a date with someone that I'm attracted to, or
Hmm.
getting a car or a belonging, an item that I really like. And it
Yeah.
seems like it's just funny how the universe works, doesn't it?
It is. And, I think part of it is that we get so focused on that goal that we miss that there are so many other areas that we do have wins. We do have like small successes.
Mhm.
And because we are so focused on that just one, I will call it one big thing, like I want to have my business successful. I want to have this romantic life. I want to have a lot of money. There are all those big
I want all
things that we miss in, right? So we miss that there are all those little wins, small wins that we have along the day. And today, really, what I do is I coach people and I speak, and I wrote a book about the things that we're going to talk today. um, and nothing from that would have happened if I would not get to that point where I say I surrender. I would probably will still be that miserable woman that made everyone's life miserable because I was not able to see. And by the way, the pattern kept going in other areas. When I started my business, I was not able to see all the small wins. And my husband would say, "Hey, you chaired a conference, a leadership conference. That's a win." No, that's not a win because that's not the big money I'm supposed to get with my business. So there were a lot of other wins that I was blind to see
Mhm.
because I was so focused on a big goal. And I think what happened, by the way, is really the universe gave me a sign of that sent me toward coaching. You want me to tell you how?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I love to. And my
So
audience would like to hear about it too.
what happened, and I believe it happens to a lot of people right now with podcasting, is that then blogging was really huge. And for years, I wanted to write and I put it aside. I was a mother, I was, having my career. And in that, space of surrender, I started to write. I started to write in my language, not in English, about being an Israeli mom in the US, just sharing my perspectives in a fun way. But what happened is that people started responded to me, and they responded to me, I believe so, because that was the first time that I allowed myself to process the emotions and the thoughts that were so closed for so many years. I
Mhm.
was angry, I was frustrated, I was disappointed, I was even jealous at my husband. How come, that woman that was so successful is suddenly can't bring results? And I was able to actually use humor to process my emotions, and people started responding to me and remind me that I am resourceful.
Mm.
And because they reached out to me, um, I started the website, and then that week, there was that week of when I launched that website, that a few women, Israeli women in the US, saw my website and they read my blog, and they called me, different women, different states, and they said the same thing.
Mm.
How did you do that? We're so stuck with our lives. Can you coach us?
Wow.
And that was a moment for me where I said, okay, maybe it's time for me to listen. I'm getting here a sign from I don't know if I exactly had that kind of a conversation, but it was like, okay, you got a sign. And so I went and I learned what coaching is all about, and decided to get trained and certified. And that's, I didn't coach those ladies, but
Mm.
everything where I am today, about 11 years after, is because of those women that called me at the same week.
Wow.
So exactly as you're saying, universe provides if you're willing to listen. And for a long time, I didn't listen to anyone.
Right. Those signs, whether big or small, we have to pay attention to it because they are a sign to our destiny, to where we need to be. And to your point, we have to celebrate the wins, both big and small, because if we don't, then we tend to miss the mark. The mark
Yeah,
is the process. It's the journey to getting to our goal. When we receive our goal, when we achieve our goal, what's next? That's not fun. I mean, I think of all the achievements I've had in my life, that when I achieve them, I wonder what's next. And reflecting of
exactly.
my achievements, I wish I should have enjoy the journey a bit more, appreciated those small wins a bit more, and really have a sense of gratitude along the way. Otherwise, what's the whole point of chasing a goal? Is that correct?
It's true. And actually, there is a great book about what you're talking about. Maybe you read it, Stretch.
Mm,
Scott, I
no,
think
I
Scott
haven't actually.
Sonnenschein. And he talks about the idea. He says, how can you become more resourceful with what you have rather than being a chaser? And he gives examples of companies and people, a lot of different examples from parenting to whatever, of how chasing is actually getting in your way.
Mm,
And I totally agree with you. And actually, right now we are in this COVID-19 situation, and I challenged myself this year to let go of what's next.
mhm,
After years of what's next, really love where I am right now, and I took kind of like slow down, be present with your family, be present with that we are healthy, and just be, rather than ask yourself what's next. And it's not
right,
easy. It's a huge challenge. It's a muscle I'm working on, but I
mm,
actually love it. It doesn't mean that I don't have goals, okay? But it's not that what you say, that what's next, that you're able to sit with what you're creating and enjoy that and relax for a moment.
mhm,
And people like me, sometimes it's hard for us. And at least when I work with my clients, I try to say, hey, yes, maybe you didn't reach that promotion yet as fast as you wanted, or you don't see the results with the money with your business as you wanted, but I hear a lot of other wins. So let me tell you what I hear. And that's where they slow down and get out of that, vicious cycle with themselves that doesn't serve them. And it didn't serve me for sure.
right. Yeah, that's such an important point. So, the the book. Tell us more about the book. What was the process like? What inspired you to really sit down and write a book? I know you had a passion in writing, and you had a mind shift. But what really? Because writing a book is not easy. It's a lot of work, and you have to enjoy it, which sounds like you did. And
Yeah.
and then of course you have to worry about who's going to publish it, what company's going to work with you, and how are you going to market the book. Tell us about the process and what has been your experience with it.
So the same way, like with the coaching, when I started, it was interesting. People heard my story and they said, "We are so funny or and engaging. Where can we hear you speaking?" And that's where again I had to work with my demons about the second language. Joint Toastmasters, if people ask them how
Yep.
to get that. So Toastmasters is a great organization for speaking. And then when you start speaking, so people come to you and say, "So where is the book?" And I was toying with the idea, but when more and more people ask, so I'm one of those writers that people asked, and seems like it's a pattern, right? We want you to coach us, we want you to speak, we want you to, we want to see a book. So it was just the right timing in my life, and rather than the conversation before about the chasing,
Hmm.
I actually arrived to the book kind of like cooked, I should call it this way. Not cooked with what I want to talk about in the book, but cooked with it's not going to be a 2 weeks process and what's next. Okay. I was actually committing to give it at least 2-3 years of a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what brought a lot of joy, not putting that I was serious about the process, but I realized that in the process of creating something like that, you need to bring a lot of love, a lot of passion, and there is a process. And when you write speeches, when you write blog posts, when you write, there is a lot that is happening here in your head. And if some people see the video behind me, you can see in the background a lot of post-its and sticky notes. So my way of thinking is I have a lot of different items in my head, and I need to go on a run. I need to cook. I need to not work. I need to sit with a friend in a coffee shop, not so much now, right now, but finding all those different ways, having a conversation with a client, speaking on stage. And suddenly, from all those different conversations, the idea emerges. And my book is the kind of book that you don't just throw up all your system and you write it. My book was, I think you call it an emerging book, that you have an idea and now how you sit and write it. And I knew it will take me time because I had those ideas about the energies of the being and the doing, and I needed to see how I create a structure into the book. So I wrote a crappy draft, as many people do, and that's how you start. It's like really bad. And I actually started, some of us process when the extroverts, and I'm kind of like in the middle. But for some people, it's just writing it on the paper. And actually, what I learned, I worked with my personal coach, not a writing coach, and she would ask me questions about the process, and we would record the conversations.
Mhm.
And that was the draft for the book from the recordings.
Mm.
So that's how we started with the recordings for the book. I sat and wrote the first draft, and then I just let the book sit aside, and I said, hey, I want to add a research.
Mhm.
So I took some time to send surveys to hundreds of people, collect the research, and just not writing. And apparently, it's amazing. A lot of people, if you listen to different writers, they will say you write the book, you put it aside, you come back after a few months, and you kind of like bake some ideas in your head, and
Right.
it will get better. So I came back with that research that I got information from people, made it better. So that was about a year of a process. And then I set for another year, and I wrote the book with an editor. I needed to have someone that will be my accountability partner, and
Right.
my editor was great about that. And that was a back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and in the middle, you send the crappy draft to beta readers.
Mm.
So that was my process, and it was very, open heart, organic way of doing it. In the end, there was that kind of like, I want it out. And my decision was not to go with a publisher. Now, some people believe they should go with a publisher, some people don't. I decided to self publish. And the reason was that I am a speaker and I do workshops. So when I did the research, it made more sense for me uh, to use the book this way. But other people have different wants and needs. And that's where you really need to go and do the research and find the right way for you. So
Mhm.
I hope it helped to share the process, how I
Yeah,
looked at
yeah.
it.
It seems like there's multiple components to writing a
Yeah.
book, not just sitting down and writing. And it takes a while for folks. I actually have a guest on my show earlier, that he's an author, and it took him several years to publish a book, and now
Yeah.
it's won multiple awards, and it's because he took some time to really um, think through how he wants to write this book, and how he was going to market it, who's going to publish it, and in how he was going to get the word out. And um, just so proud of authors such as yourself, who has the energy, the passion, and the drive to really sit down and really write something that you're really interested in. Um,
Yeah.
I also see like a book as a way to guide us to doing other activities that give us more fulfillment and purpose, as what this
Yeah.
podcast is about. Podcast, uh,
Yeah.
and so have you thought about the kinds of strategy that you're using once the book has been published, or I'm assuming it's already been published? Is that correct?
Yeah, it was published, and actually, my launch party was supposed to be the week when they started the lockdown. And that
Oh
was
no.
such a sad moment for me.
Oh
But I came so ready for this disappointment in a way
right.
that I said, I'm not going to let it stop me. There were too many things in my life that stopped me, with the relocation, with kids,
Mhm.
health issues in family. So, when you go through those things and there are all those different hurdles, there is that
Right.
when I will, figure that out, then I will do. And this time, actually, it was like, nope. I keep going. I will
Right.
not let that stop me with this book.
Right.
So that's something that that's a tip I can give people. If I can give people, don't say when this pandemic over, then I will do what I want. No, just
Do
do
it.
it now.
Right.
Yeah.
Take action. Don't wait for it. You're the essentially the star of your own movie, and it's up to you to really guide where your career wants you to take. And so essentially you're taking all the necessary actions without waiting. And also running a business is you have to be flexible and you have to be agile, and you also have to really cope with the change, right? There's a piece of the change management, right? Whether the
Mm-hmm.
at our workplace or in our personal lives, and really be flexible and adapt to new situations. I feel like a lot of businesses today fail because they part of it is because they don't have the muscle or the ability to adapt to new situations and change. And so the fact that
Yeah.
you're actually you had a plan that you were going to launch this book in a certain way, but due to the pandemic, is uh, you know stop you from that process, and now you think of innovative creative ways to get your book out, and one of them is through podcasting. And so you're
Right.
already
Yeah.
an entrepreneur. It's great to hear that. Thank you so much for
And
sharing that
and
process.
I have to say,
Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, and I have to say that I used to speak to, I before the pandemic, I spoke to groups in conferences, events,
Mhm.
and when this pandemic started, and there was a plan, there were already bookings for my speaking, and I said,
Wow.
podcasts. I'm going to reach out to people and just be a guest and talk about whatever, not about my book. I'm just going to have
Right.
with them conversations. And I have to tell you that I realized that I enjoy the podcast conversations so much more than when I speak on stage, because they are real and they are not planned as much as you need to plan when you start speaking to bigger groups.
Mhm.
And I just kind of like, it was a moment of pause
Mhm.
and saying, hey, this is your ego wants the stage, or is it something that you really enjoy doing? And when I had those conversation after conversation with podcast hosts, which are brilliant people,
Mhm.
and just having heart to heart real conversations, I said, maybe there is something there with the ego I need to look at with the speaking, because this is true fun experience for me having all those podcast interviews. So every time, as we say, when we kind of like release, rather than kind of like maybe saying, I'm gonna, keep doing speaking on, in conferences, even though even if it's virtual, and kind of like doing that pivot to podcasting and realizing that you actually really love it.
Mhm.
um, so thank you for giving me the stage
Yeah.
to just have a conversation with you, a real heart to heart conversation.
Meaningful conversations. And this is one of
Yeah,
the reasons
yeah,
why I launched the
yeah,
podcast, is to really connect with people, knowing that a lot of people are lonely and isolated because of either shelter in place or um, it just gives an outlet for people to really connect and have those heart-to-heart conversations, whether it is about their
yeah,
personal or professional life. And to your point, I mean, you're already using a strategy in terms of marketing your book. I mean, you're on the podcast, you're having these meaningful conversations, not necessarily talking about your book, although it's encouraged. Um, but also a way to really connect with audience who are listening to this podcast and who are wanting to someday, write a book, and they may reach out to you because of this podcast, say, hey, how did you write your
Yeah.
book? And then maybe even buy your book. And so there's just like a lot of moving places, a lot of elements to marketing a book or a product or what it is. But it really does come down to those, like you're saying, meaningful conversations and relationships. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you mentioned about being in the present moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
What gets you in the present moment? I mean, do you practice meditation? Do you stop and pause and reflect? Like, what are some of the skills or tools that you've incorporated into your life that you could provide to my listeners to help them be more in tune with what's in their mind at the current situation?
Yeah, so that's a great question because we get on autopilot, right? So kind of like break it down for me. So definitely meditation is a great tool. I have to say that since the pandemic, I do it less. What I do is I pray. I pray every morning, not religious praise, but actually more of I have a spiritual book that I pray, and for me, it's I'm not praying for me, but I pray for people in the world, in my family, and creating that connection, right? That bigger sense of connection and getting out of me, right? Because we have that tendency. So that's one thing I'm kind of like religiously, even though it's not religious, but religiously I'm doing every morning. And the second thing is for me nature,
Mhm,
especially because what I do is most of my job and my role is life is giving. I listen to my clients, there is definitely a different listening when it's kind of like right now when you are having this conversation with me. It's a different kind of listening than when you are in a business meeting.
mhm,
So it's you have to listen very well and be there 100% present, right, for your client. And
mhm,
it's a lot of letting go of your thoughts about yourself and be with the other person. So for me, and then I have 3 kids, so, and a husband, and we are together right now, everyone in the house. So there is all this giving. So for me, nature is a way to be alone and nurturing myself. I
mhm,
will run, and running really helps me to work on my mental blocks and
mhm,
also process my emotions and my thoughts. And I think, talking about your podcast, mentioning people that feeling right now social isolation,
mhm,
um, it really allows you when you listen to other people, right, to be present with your thoughts and your emotions. So for me, listening to an audiobook while I'm walking, or just being with my thoughts, or music, or listening to a podcast, being outdoors, the nature is a lifesaver for me. And it allows me to reflect, really slowing down. I think really fast. I move a lot of times very fast. So for me, nature, they say that nature is seductive, right? All these beautiful colors and voices if we're willing to look. So for me, it's about watching the leaves changing every day and looking at the same things that you see every day, the same tree, the same path, but it's changing. And am I willing to look at that change every day? So that's where is mostly that mindfulness is really the doing of how to become present with our life. It's the yoga, it's the gardening, it's the walking, it's the meditation. There are all different ways of doing to help us to become more present with our lives. So
right,
for me, those are like nature is really, and I'm paying attention. And sometimes I will invite my clients, when they are very very busy, I will say, just take me on your earphones and let's do a walk and talk. You
mhm,
will walk and we'll do the coaching while you're outdoors. So
mhm,
I truly believe in that. and that's what I practice. And I even took it a step forward to create a networking that is all outdoors when people walk and network in nature, because I believe there is nature is very important to us mentally.
Right.
Um, so
Wow.
that's what I practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I love nature as well. So when I lived in San Francisco, as you know, north of California, there's all these coastal areas and hiking trails, and
Right.
there's this area called the Marin Headlands, and I would take a walk, maybe
I
with
was there.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible, just the amount of energy and just positivity that we receive just by being in the outdoors,
Yeah.
walking and enjoying nature. And so it really does give us a chance to really pause and reflect on our lives and where we want to go. So, as you know, this podcast is really about purpose and meaning. What's your
Hmm.
definition of purpose and meaning, and how do you um, tap into it?
So for me, when I try to explain that to clients, I say that the purpose and meaning is really that North Star. It's your
Mm,
North Star that guides your way no matter where you go. And even though you define it, no, there are so many different ways right now to define your life purpose, and I know many people play with that.
right.
And I try to help my clients to find their life purpose. There is no right way to do that.
Mhm.
um, and I believe it changes because you changes and how you look at things change. So for example, if I say I'm the leader, how I see leader when I'm 20, or when I'm 30, or when I'm 50, that definition is changing. It's like success. What you see as success when you are 15 or 20 or 30 is many times different than when you are 50 or 60 or 70. So for me, it's that North Star. But I also invite, as in this conversation today, not to force that life purpose, but give that spaciousness to understand that even the definitions that you think you understand today, they might change.
Mm.
So that's how I define life purpose, the
Ah,
North Star.
fast, that's fascinating. So, a North Star is something that you look forward to, guides you to where you want to go. Doesn't matter what life throws at you,
And it's
and
always there,
it's
right?
always there. It's like this a light at the end of the tunnel, and you just keep going until you reach that light. And um, I there's just so many changes in the past couple of years in my life. I've was born and raised in the Midwest, lived in the Midwest all my life, and
Mm.
took this bold move and moved to to San Francisco, which is a pretty big city compared to Minneapolis,
Right.
and now other moved to San Diego, and so but I've always had my mind set on where I wanted to go. And so that's the beach. That's where I, find my enjoyment, my happiness. That's
Mm,
where I'm most satisfied. It's my people, my culture, my setting. And so um, when you're at a place or environment that celebrates who you are, you're more of yourself, and we have to go to places that celebrate ourselves, because
mhm,
if we were to live in a place or be or work in an environment that isn't aligned to who we are, then we're not in alignment. Our heart, our mind, our soul is not in alignment, and that's what we feel, you know, uh, unbalanced. And so, what's your advice to people when they feel in their lives with all these changes that's going on that they're not in tune, either with their purpose? Like, how do they um, get themselves to be in line, either with their heart and mind in sync, or finding their passion? Like, how can people tap into their passion? Do you have any insight on that?
yeah. So when I listen to you, first I have to say, you talked about the light in the end of the tunnel. And for me, the North Star is always above me. So why that alignment that you're talking about, it's like I can feel that it's aligned because it's above me and it's always there. No matter how messy I am, no matter how far I am from what I want, it's still there. And I believe now, from my wisdom, I'm not that old, but from what I collected along the way, at least from the wisdom of where I am today, what I believe is that there will be times that you will be lost.
Right.
And maybe you will not able to see the North Star because there are some clouds, or maybe the trees hide. Like for me, I say I was lost in the woods of Brooklyn, New York City. So, and I loved Brooklyn, New York City. I love Brooklyn Bridge. For me is like what you say about the beach.
Mhm.
So there will be times that we will not be able to see the North Star,
Mhm.
and it's okay. And that's for me, it's rather than focusing on forcing the purpose to show up in every moment in my life, to just know that it's there, and it's going to show up in different ways in different situations, and sometimes I will feel more close to my life purpose, and there will be times that I will take a step away, and that's okay too, because I believe a lot of the stuff that we do is energy. And I'm not going into a woo-woo stuff, but if you think about emotions, some people say emotions are energy in motion.
Mhm.
We can't be happy all the time, even though it's what we want. Right now, we experience a few different emotions. We're happy, we're sad, we are
Right.
angry, we're excited, right? So it's moving. We are moving, we're changing, and that's why I believe even with the purpose, there will be moments that will be closer to it and moments that will be a bit further away.
Mhm.
What I believe today more and more is what you said, that experience of being with the people that can remind you that you are resourceful. And there will be times, like in your situation, that right? You know that the beach is your place. And
Right.
there will be other times, like for me, where you are in a situation, if it's work, I see that a lot with people changing roles,
Mhm.
or like when you suddenly move from working inside a company to starting your own business, that suddenly it's a new territory. And like in my, with my relocation, it's not the same country, not the same language.
Mhm.
I thought I understand the United States, but even when I moved from New York City to now North Carolina, and I lived there for 7 years, totally different United States, right? So there will be times that you know the territory and you know where to find your tribe. And there
Mhm.
will be times that you will feel isolated, or you will feel that you're not sure where is your tribe.
Right.
And that's where my invitation is, to see who are the people that can remind you that you are resourceful. So if there are people here that thinking about starting a podcast, I hope you will not be upset with me for saying that, but go and do that, because you will be reminded by the people who listen to you, or by your guests, or by the conversation with your guests, that you are resourceful. For me, it happened with the blogging. That was not my intention. My intention was just to write, but it started a conversation with other people. So in moments of transition, we have tendency to isolate ourselves. It's what we do, no matter what situation, negative or positive. It's just what we do in transition. So my biggest invitation is, take yourself and start with one person.
Yeah.
And then if there is something that you enjoy to do, like writing, singing, whatever, don't try to go for doing it the best, but just start. um, I knew I was not the best writer, but I just had that want to write. So if there is a want there, like writing, like podcasting, like starting a business, like selling stickers, like sitting in a coffee shop and having a conversation with another person to just make them happier,
Mhm.
um, start there, because other people will remind you that you are resourceful, and then you will remember your life purpose. But it's hard when we have all these internal conversations with ourselves. And I see so many people that exhaust themselves with those internal conversations.
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
so many different ways.
Mhm.
Why can I solve it? Why I don't understand my problem? Why I can't see where is my pain? Why I can't do it? Why can I be this? Why? In so many different ways. And it's hard. It's just hard to do it alone. It's hard
Yeah.
with the journaling. It's great to do journaling, but there is a moment where we need to realize that this alone is not serving us.
Mhm.
And I hope that one person that listen to this podcast will listen to me and say, I'm going out, or I'm calling a friend, or I am doing a Zoom something, Zumba, whatever. I'm just finding someone to go and connect with and start a conversation, no matter how. Then it will remind you that you're resourceful and it will bring you back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems like, there are some people in this world that, where they're in this situation, they just isolate themselves even more. And it's important that we have to get ourselves out, as hard as it is, because that's actually good for us, whether that
Yeah.
is through meditation, hiking, connecting with another person, either on the phone or, taking a walk together, social distancing and wearing masks, or, having just a quick phone call, say, hey, what's going on? I think that we need to have these connections, because that's what we're built for as humans, is to connect with one another. And
Yeah.
so it's so important that, you're sharing this message of encouraging people to connect with, one or two people in their lives as
Yeah.
support, that they can, relate to, understand, and share some of their struggles or what they're going through at the current state. um, I wanted to touch on some of your, success habits. Obviously, you've been successful with writing your book and, with your career. What are some of the top three? I'd say three success habits that you can share with my audience.
Success habits. Um, Find a way to work on your mental blocks. So for me, it's running.
Hmm.
Running allowed me to see that there was that specific spot where I always stopped. And learning that, I would see in my head that I start creating excuses
Hmm.
why I should stop. So running, or I believe that through different workout activities, we can see where are our mental blocks in other areas in our life. I
Hmm.
actually started inviting my youngest son, who has some, I can see some patterns. I
Hmm.
invited him to start running with me, and I slowed down to run with him, that he can help himself work on some mental blocks. And I believe that when you learn where is the mental block, and you teach yourself how you can have a 5K run, for example, I don't run long runs, but I run 5K, the 2-3 miles, the
Hmm.
half an hour. But it was so interesting for me. It was, don't put lines, because when you put a line for yourself, then you stop, right? But then I changed that, exactly like what we talked today about forcing versus letting the universe. I shifted my mindset and I said, I will run until I'm tired. And suddenly, from not being able to complete a run, I was able to run easily.
Hmm.
So it's amazing how much we can learn from different workout, um, whatever it is that you like to do, but that can challenge you to see where are your mental blocks, and then learn from that, how you show up with people, with your business, with your career, with the goals you're trying to create for yourself. So that's one thing.
Hmm.
Another thing which is hard, um, consistent. So maybe I will even take a step back and I will say something that maybe people heard before, is the stacking of habits. I will take again the running. So I will always prepare for myself my clothes in the night before.
Hmm.
So I will put my running clothes waiting for me. And then in the morning when I wake up, there is no run away, right? There are no excuses. So I know how my mechanism works. And most of us know, we just ignore it. So I call it awareless, right? There is creating awareness, but we are in a awareless space. So if you realize that and you know, so for me, it's the stacking. It's I'm preparing for myself the clothes in the night before, and then when I wake up, cannot have excuses because it's there waiting for me. So
Right.
I'm really teaching myself how to work with me rather than against myself. And if I talk about that, so many times we try to do things like other people.
Mhm.
And I say that I encourage people to challenge the norms.
Mm,
So if everyone works from 9 to 5, does it really works for us right now in the pandemic when we're in a new situation? What do we need to change? What do we need to look at and do differently?
mhm,
And that's something that I truly challenge myself again and again. So for example, what worked for me before, the way I worked before, doesn't work for me now. And I decided that I really enjoy pushing really hard for a few days and then I need to recharge.
mhm,
So I learned to give myself that permission. And if there are people who listen to me right now, I hope you will look. Here is my tip to you: look at your cycles. We have seasons, women have cycle, everything has cycle in lives.
mhm,
And the same way is the cycle of our energy as people who work. And even though the industrial revolution created an average way of working for the average person, we're different people and we work in different ways. So
mhm,
my invitation to you is to really pay attention to what is your cycle. So for example, for me, I will push really hard for a few days and then I need to recover.
mhm,
Some people have a different rhythm. So start there, start by identifying it, because I was so hard on myself with working the same way as everyone else, because you say everyone else do that this way, so how come I can't? And then you just sit in front of the computer and you don't see results. You just sit there because you say, oh, I'm supposed to sit and write my book, but I don't do that. Of course you don't, because you worked for 10 days on that talk to that conference and you pushed really hard and now you need to recover for half a day. So today I give myself that permission. I know my cycle of how I work
mhm,
and I work with me and not against me. And then I give myself the permission to do it my way.
mhm.
Yes, you can do that even if you work in corporate America. Be- I really, I work with people from corporate America. It's possible to do. We just need to be smart about that and we need to pay attention. And then we don't walk with that guilt and exhaustion of why I'm not doing it like other people.
Right.
So 3 things you said, right? So
Yeah, 3 things.
I will stop here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope that my listeners will take away those 3 things and incorporate them into their own lives to really drive the kind of change that they want for themselves, for the better, really.
Mhm.
What or who inspires you and why?
I at first my daughter, she's 16 and she teaches me again and again um everything. So but I'm gonna put that aside because she's my daughter and it's her personal lives. But in a more of a known people, I really like Simon Sinek. I know many people know
Oh,
Simon,
yeah.
and it's really relevant, right, to the why, to the purpose. That's how people know him. And if you haven't heard about Simon Sinek, he has one of the most watched TED Talks of all times, and many people talk about the why that comes from him. But
Right.
actually, I just think that he's such a thought, he's just thought leader. He's provoking in the way he talks about millennials. And
Mm,
now he has a new book about, I forgot the name of the book, but it really takes ideas and reframe them in a new way in this modern life. So I really enjoy listening to his videos and his ideas. So he's someone that I'm very inspired by because he thinks outside the box.
yeah, yeah,
And I
definitely.
appreciate people that don't say this is how we need to do things because it's how everyone else, and it kind of like comes and say, is there a different way?
Yeah, yeah. He's definitely one of the few people that inspires me to do my best work, and definitely a very relevant person of this time to really listen to his content and follow him on social media, because what he speaks and what he says is very true and applicable to our own lives, both from a
Yeah.
personal and professional level for sure. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
One of the last things that he said that I think is very relevant is that some people say, my life purpose at work is not the same, my why or my life purpose at work is not the same as in my personal lives. And he had this video saying, no, it's always the same. So that's, as I said, that North Star, um, life purpose, it's for everything and everywhere. And that's where you see where you walk your talk with your values. So I really love that he kind of like pinpoint that point, that it's like it's not different,
right,
it's everywhere.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a statement that applies to everything that we do, no matter what lives throw at us. And it's important that we sit down and really, you know, I wrote my statement, you know, and I read to you the other day.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's really an overall all encompasses statement that really guides me to where I wanted to go. So I would highly suggest people to really write it down. And there's something about writing it down too that really sticks to your mind, just like how your post-it notes in
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
background is doing. And I think that people need to take more advantage of writing things down so that they can actually, you know, it reminds them about it.
And I'm going to give people a tip, talking about
Yeah.
connecting, right? So first, sometimes it's hard to do the life purpose on your own.
Right.
And it takes some time. You need to process it again and again. So reach out to another person, have a conversation about it. And the second thing I want to say is that Simon Sinek, actually, on his website, you can join his, he has seminars, webinars, 2-3 hours of the why. And right now he is kind of like pay as much as you want,
Oh
as
wow.
much as you can. Yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
great opportunity for people right now if you really care about life purpose. So it's a great opportunity to pay as much as you can.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Yeah, my folks will need to check that out. Speaking of websites, where can people find you if they want to
So,
connect with you?
yeah, so first, as if you need to connect and have a conversation, you feel a bit lonely or just want to keep the conversation from what you heard here. So all the social media, the same social media handle at Noah, Noar coach, Noah, Noar coach. So that's on social media, and my website, Noa Ronen coaching. And Noah is without an age because that's an Israeli woman. The Israeli guy is Noah with an H, which in Hebrew we pronounce Noah.
Wow.
So you don't have the ch in English, so we add the H. So Noah is a girl's name. And actually, I realized she was the first feminist, first one to
Wow.
fight on social equality, but that's for another time. Uh, but I didn't know that until I moved to the US. That's when I learned that. So Noah, Noa Ronan coaching. Feel free to reach out and have a conversation. I would love that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Noah. It's a beautiful name, by the way. I
Thank you.
love the sound, and thank you for sharing the history too. I didn't know that. That's important. I should. But
Mhm.
anyway, so thank you so much for your time, and folks, you know where to find Noah. And please reference where you found her through the Purpose Tune podcast. The Purpose Tune podcast. And I hope that you guys will find this content to be valuable. And no, I wish you all the best in your career, and also stay safe and keep on marching. You're doing great work. Your stuff truly inspires. So keep it up.
Thank you, Kong. I just want to say thank you and thank you for walking your purpose. I believe a lot of people gain from your podcast. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. All right. Take care.
Thank you.